It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for giving us the time.
Thanks for the invitation. Very pleased to be with you.
Fantastic. So this is obviously not your first election night, but I have to imagine that for yourself, this is the most exciting one that you've had in many years.
I think you're right. Because we had a very good campaign, and I believe that we have a kind of a momentum. People are looking at us now. More people know that we exist. In the beginning of the campaign, the People's Party of Canada was not so well known with the majority of Canadians. And that campaign gave me the opportunity to speak about what we believe and to bring our message to more Canadians.
So I want to ask you about PPC strategy going forward after tonight. So if the polls are correct, what we know is that your party is going to have a significant increase in vote share nationally and far surpass the expectations of the legacy media. I want to know what the PPC strategy would be if after tonight the Conservative Party were to perhaps move more right and perhaps try and crowd your party and yourself out of the right-wing vote.
No, actually, the Conservative Party of Canada is not a conservative party anymore. They're only conservative in name, and they're going to the left. They were going to the left with Andrew Scheer. Now they're going more to the left with O'Toole, because we are living in a socialist era, and their only goal is to be in power, to be in government. And, they have the same narrative, and they're speaking like liberals and like leftists. That's because they want to have the support of the left. And I believe that the real conservative voters are looking at us like the real option on a lot of issues, speaking by more freedom and saying no to lockdown, saying no to vaccine passports. We are the only one that is ready to fight for freedoms and for Canadians. So that being said, I don't know what the Conservative Party will do after this election. But for me, if they're not winning, if they don't win a minority or a majority, it's not because of us. It's because the Conservative Party of Canada is not conservative. And for us, we will always fight for what we believe. And this political party, this movement will grow. We won't do the mistake that the Reform Party did, Preston Manning did. Preston was a principled politician, and I admired him. But he was the leader of the opposition, and he wanted to be prime minister, and they merged, and at the end they didn't have the same philosophy. So for us, the People's Party of Canada is there for the long term. That election is an important step for us, and I think for Canadians it will be an historical election. So I don't know, but I believe our goal in the beginning of the campaign was to grow a percentage of the vote. From 1.6, and I said to my candidates, if we have on average all across the country 4%, I'll be happy. But I believe it would be more than that. I believe that some candidates can be elected, and I believe that we'll be able to beat the Greens and having more support than the Green. And I hope that everything will go well for us, and we'll have a couple of candidates elected. If not, we will do the same thing. I'll be on a campaign trail after this election and traveling across the country and to build our movement and our political party all across the country, because I believe that will be an election maybe in 2 years if we have a minority government.
So one thing I observed of your campaign was your adoption of alternative media. You went on to several podcasts and used longer form discussions to try and speak to your base. You were just on the Jordan Peterson podcast, and previously you did a show with Michael Malice. Yeah. So given that you've clearly had success in using new media to reach out to your base, do you think that in the future we're going to see other political leaders, party leaders, adopt your same alternative media strategy?
I don't know. What they don't want. All these establishment political leaders, they don't want to have a real discussion with Canadians. They try to appeal to your emotions during a campaign and after a campaign with soundbite and clips. And for us, like I said, we are doing politics differently. I'm not afraid to speak about our platform and taboo subject for someone, and there's no taboo subject for us. So yes, that's why I'm able to do this kind of a podcast and having a discussion for 1 hour and 30 minutes with Jordan Peterson. As you know, Jordan Peterson said and wrote that he asked Erin O'Toole to come. and Aaron O'Toole declined to be with him because they cannot have that. The way that they're doing politics, they don't want to sit and having a real conversation about their platform. They're doing politics based on survey and pollings, and that's why people are fed up with that. We are doing politics by conviction. If I'm speaking about something that is not popular, I will speak about it because I believe that we have the best ideas, and until we have a majority. But traditional politicians, if they're a subject like, I don't know, mask mandates, if they don't have the majority on their side, they won't speak against that. For us, we are doing politics differently because we try to appeal to the intelligence of people and also to explain our policies and to inform people. And I believe if we have on a subject only 10% of support, we will speak about it openly with passion and conviction, and we'll have more people because we believe that we have the best ideas and the best vision for this country based on the 4 principles of our party: individual freedom, personal responsibility, respect, and fairness. So I don't believe that, answering your question, that these traditional politicians will use social media, because you have to be honest and authentic if you want to use social media, and they're not.
So I want to kind of switch gears here and ask you about something that I felt got very little attention during this election, and that's the state of our military. You know, we have a depleted, demoralized, understaffed, and out-of-date military, and we have a fighter jet procurement system, for example, which is a total joke, and like a fleet of submarines that are barely usable. And on top of that, our closest allies just signed a defense agreement without us, leaving us behind. Yeah. How is it that our once feared military is in this position, and why does it feel like it's such a non-issue at the federal level?
Well, it's a non-issue because they're doing polling and it's not popular with the population. They don't want to speak about that. We think that it's important, and yes, our party, we want to balance the budget in 4 years and will be fiscally responsible. O'Toole and Trudeau, they are not. And for the Canadian forces, yes, we must reinvest in our Canadian forces. We must try to achieve the target of 2% of our GDP. But I can tell you, it won't happen a first mandate of the People's Party of Canada, because we have to fix our budget. We have to balance the budget, and we'll do that without increasing taxes, but by cutting foreign aid, $5 billion that we can save, cutting corporate welfare, we can save between $8 to $10 billion, cutting the CBC. So we know what to do to balance the budget in 4 years. We'll do that. But we know also that we must reinvest in our Canadian forces, and that will be a priority after balancing the budget. All these, the Liberals and the Conservatives during this campaign, they were there to buy your votes with money that we don't have. A lot of promises, because that's the way that they're doing politics. What we'll do, we'll cut all these promises that they did, and what will happen? It will be the inflation. We have the inflation tax right now. People must understand that huge deficit of $354 billion, it's not our children and grandchildren that will pay for it. It is us right now by the inflation tax. The inflation is about 4.2% in Canada. If you do your grocery, it's about 6-7%. Inflation is a hidden tax. Instead of taking your own money in your own pockets and forcing you to give that to the government by taxing you, the government and O'Toole and Trudeau, they're telling you, keep your money in your pockets, but you won't be able to buy the same amount of goods and services with your money. Your purchasing power is going down, your standard of living is going down. Inflation is a hidden tax, the worst of all taxes, and we will fight that. And now what they said during this campaign, the Conservative, the Liberal, they will spend more money, they won't balance the budget, they will increase our debt for the next 10 years, and we will have to pay that inflation tax right now that it's about 5%. Maybe in 6 months it will be 8-9%. And that's a disaster. We need to do politics differently and to tell the truth to Canadians. So that's why I believe that, yes, we must reinvest in our Canadian forces, but I'm honest with you, we won't be able to do that on a first mandate. Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask you about national unity, and I think a lot of Canadians would agree that we do have a unity problem in this country. We have 2 separatist movements in 2 very different parts of the country, born out of different frustrations. And on top of that, almost all the provinces have now introduced a vaccine mandate system, which will only further divide Canadians. How would we possibly try and unify this country, and what would the PPC strategy be to do that?
Yeah, we want divided people by race, by gender, and now by vaccination status. We won't do that. Our goal is to unite every Canadian under the freedom umbrella. Everybody must be free to choose if they want the vaccine or not. We respect everybody. That's the freedom of choice. Same thing for mass mandate. And that's an important issue for this election. But yes, you're absolutely right about this country right now, the unity. And it's a little bit sad that I'm the only one that has a solution for the unity of our country. When you have Western Canadians and you have Western alienation, and we have, like you said, about 30% of the population in Alberta that are ready to separate. We need to address that. O'Toole and Trudeau, they won't speak about that. I'm doing interviews in Toronto or in Eastern Canada, and I said, people in Western Canada, they're not so happy with the situation. They didn't know that because nobody's speaking about that except ourselves. So yes, we have a solution. The solution is to respect the Constitution. If you respect the Constitution, you'll have a radical decentralization. Provinces like Alberta will have more autonomy. You need to be able also to build pipelines in this country. We are for that. We need to change the equalization formula to be less generous, to give the right incentive to other provinces, like my own province in Quebec, to develop their own natural resources. As you know, that formula is a poverty trap. Quebec received equalization money since the beginning of that program, 1957. So we must stop that. Quebec is not a poor province. I'm the only one who bring that discussion. But the other don't want, because they will have to explain that. They will have to tell the truth. And you can explain that in a 5-second soundbite. You can do that. So we are doing that, and that's why it will take maybe more time. But I'm speaking about the unity issue in Western Canada, but also in Quebec and in Atlantic Canada. And actually, as you saw in the poll, we have a lot of support in Atlantic Canada. We don't do any polling internally. I'm looking at the public polls. And in Atlantic Canada, we're supposed to be around 14%. And in Alberta, about the same. So when you tell the truth based on facts, people can understand. I believe that Canadians are not children that you must regulate and no, they're adult. They must be responsible adult. And that's why we are doing that. We are telling the truth, and we know that it can take more time. But my goal is not to be in government tomorrow like Erin O'Toole. My goal is for our ideas to win the battle of ideas. We are in the middle of a socialist era in Canada and all across other countries also. We need to fight and we need to win that ideological revolution, and we will. So that's why I believe tonight, if we have 5-6% of the vote, it will be a big victory for the People's Party, and the next step we will grow again. And you can count on us, on me. After this campaign, I'll be back in the road, on the street, and I will fight with Canadians in Ottawa, but also in the street, because we will have to do more protests. If you have a liberal government or a conservative government, they will both of them are ready to violate our rights and freedoms, and we must act. We must tell them, we don't want to live in a country when you do a segregation and discrimination with Canadians, and that's happening right now with the vaccine passport. We must fight for everybody, and we'll do that. And I believe that vaccinated people, like unvaccinated people, know that the direction of our country. That direction, it's not the one that we want. We are going to more socialism, mm-hmm. and more communism, and we need to go back to our founding principles, and that's a battle that we'll need to do after this election.
So I actually want to ask you about that as sort of one of the final questions I have, and it's about your vision for Canada. So often in politics, party leaders are forced to talk about whatever's in the news cycle, and we never really get to hear their grand vision for this country. But I want to frame it in this context. So what would you say to a Canadian that looks at this country and sees a country that is no longer what it once was, that sees it standing on the world stage dropping precipitously, that sees fewer economic opportunities available to them, and sees their freedoms eroding? What would you say to that Canadian to motivate them about the future? And what is your grand vision for Canada? What can Canada become?
Well, first of all, I believe that the problem in Canada is the government and more government intervention in our day-to-day life. And our position on that, we are putting Canadian first and our country first. But that's not a slogan, that's a reality. By working on our own agenda, not the UN agenda, the socialist agenda, our own agenda, keeping our sovereignty. I see that country in the near future, if we win that battle of ideas, and I believe we will, because the truth always win, and we will, but I don't know when. But that election is a big step toward that. So, I believe in a smaller government in Ottawa that will respect individual rights, that will respect people, that will look at Canadians as responsible adults, a smaller government that won't interfere in provincial jurisdiction, where you will have constitutional peace in this country. And doing that, you'll have more autonomy for every province. In Quebec, they have their pension fund, they have their police force. Why Alberta or another province cannot have that? They can. We need to have a more decentralized country, like the father of our Constitution wanted to be. And if you respect the Constitution, you'll have that radical decentralization. So I believe that a smaller government in Ottawa that will give more autonomy to provinces, and at the same time will have a more prosperous and a freer country. I want our country to be back what we were before COVID-19, and maybe more before that, when we had more freedoms, and now we don't. So it's sad, the situation of today, because I believe it can be worse before being better. With these mask mandate and vaccine passport, it will be all over the country. It's in Quebec right now in force, and it will be in Ontario, it will be in Alberta, in BC, because the federal government and O'Toole and Trudeau, they're ready to spend $1 billion that we don't have to force provinces to implement the vaccine passport. So that's why. And also on immigration. We are the only party that is against mass immigration, for sustainable immigration. That's why we need to have that discussion on immigration also right now, because we love this country and we want this country to be like that in 25 years. I'm looking what is happening in Europe, in France, when you have no-go zone there. We don't want that in our country. That's why we want fewer immigrants. More of them must be skilled immigrants. And we need to fix the border at the Roxham Road in Quebec. So there's a lot of challenges. But if we speak about it, and if people are putting their vote where they believe in, and I'm telling people, don't vote against something for this election. Vote for something. Vote for your values. Vote for us, for the PPC. Look at our platform. And so that argument about splitting the vote, it's very, it's a little bit when I saw the conservative at the end of the campaign saying to everybody, don't vote for the PPC, you will split the vote. No, you won't split the vote, because O'Toole is not conservative, and people understand that. And they need to send a strong message in Ottawa. And I believe that the People's Party of Canada will be the real opposition. We won't be the official opposition in Ottawa after this election, but we will be the real opposition, the real ideological opposition in this country. And people, I believe, need us, and we need their support. So that's why this battle, it's only the first step, and we'll see what will happen. But we can, if everybody work together under the freedom umbrella, we can be able to gain back our country.
So it is election night, and before we go, we'd be wrong to not ask you for a prediction about what's going to happen tonight. What do you think is going to happen for you and your party?
First, I've been told by my people in both, it's very tight for me in both over there. I don't know what will happen. I believe that we'll have at least 4, 5, 6% of the votes. That will be a huge victory, maybe more than that, and maybe a couple of our candidates elected. But the most important, the mainstream media won't be able to ignore us anymore. But we were able to grow without them because of our using social media, podcasts, YouTube, and all these real, alternative media, but real independent media. So we will focus there. For me, just before the vote, I feel very good. I did everything that I had to do. I traveled across the country. We did rallies. I did my best. And we'll see what will happen. But I'm pretty confident that this election will be an historical one for the People's Party and maybe for the country.
Well, thank you for the time, Mr. Bernier. Best of luck tonight.
Merci. Thank you very much.